I'm sorry?
When did you arrive?
Sunday night. Yeah. So one day to kind of settle and prepare, and then now I'm ready.
Are you going to be at the Circularity Gap?
Yeah, of course, yeah. And you?
Yeah. It's a really busy calendar, right?
And it's super busy. I mean, right after this, I'm running off to do another meeting. But yeah, thanks for all the help setting it up. Cool. Okay. May I have a quick glass of water? L'agua. Yeah, sí. No? Ah, sí, okay.
I'm gonna put 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, your photo and
Okay. Hey, Maria. Nice to see you. Yeah, nice to meet you in person as well. Exactly. Yeah.
I'm sorry for not being.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
imagine
It's
how
okay.
busy
It's super crazy busy.
Yes.
I know. Nice to see you. Let's catch up a bit later. Yeah, and we have a dinner tomorrow.
Yes, tomorrow.
Yeah, perfect.
I also want to share a bit what we are doing at SB Coffee with you, so perhaps we have some.
Yeah, let's do that.
What we are leading.
I don't.
Some streams.
Yeah, no, let's definitely touch base.
There is a huge feat with circularity. We are leading all the sustainable cities.
Okay, perfect. Oh, cool. Nice. One question. Can I see the clock so I can see the time I have here. It's a countdown. It goes down. Sí. Sí. I'm able to see the countdown of the clock
yeah, sure.
from 30 minutes to
30
0.
minutes.
Amazing. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go. Okay, I think we're starting. Okay. All right. Welcome everybody. Please be seated. Welcome to this very special extra session. I'm very happy that you could all make it. Welcome to the launch of the Global Circularity Gap Report 2025. It's a pleasure to be here in the vibrant city of Sao Paulo. So much energy here. Obviously a city and even a country full of opportunity for the circular economy. So I'm really proud to be able to launch our 8th edition of our Global Gap Report today. Today I'm going to give you some of the sneak peek, a bit of the key numbers, the key facts, and I hope to leave you with some numbers and some insights that you can carry on throughout the rest of the forum this week. I'm also going to be able to share some special news about what we're doing with CGR, not only diagnosing and measuring a lot of the circularity levels at a global level, but also more towards solution and working with leaders like yourselves in implementing solutions. And finally, I have a great panel that I'm very excited to bring on stage, also really to hear their reflections on the findings of the report and really what that means and what we need to do to translate that into next steps and action. So it's going to be a very short but very packed program. Let me switch. So we've been monitoring global circularity since 2018. And we have been looking at how our global economy extracts materials, transforms them and consumes them, and ultimately how those materials are destined either for waste, emissions, and recycling. This story has been evolving ever since 2018, and I think more and more I'm really sure that how we can implement circular economy is a really crucial key to, on one hand, addressing a lot of the critical environmental challenges that we face, but also in terms of addressing practically the socioeconomic and economic development challenges and well-being challenges. So I think circular economy for me over the past 8 years has really shown to be more and more of a crucial step and a crucial way to think about these issues. Now, back in 2018, we measured the global circular economy to be 9.1%. We intentionally put one number out there, really to bring a sense of focus, but also to establish a sense of urgency around the topic. Unfortunately, 8 years on, that number has declined to 6.9%. It's a disappointing trend that we keep seeing going down, but I think for us it's also raised a bit of a core challenge and a bit of an existential crisis, if you can imagine, that even though we really put that one number out to draw attention and to draw a sense of focus, it also really begs the explanation, what's really happening? How can we explain this trend? And ultimately, what can we do to reverse it? The Circularity Gap Report 2025 really addresses this challenge head on. For the first time, we introduce 11 headline indicators, as you can see here. And behind these, there are more than 20 sub-indicators. And these really do tell an extremely comprehensive story as to where our global economy is underperforming in terms of circularity, but more precisely what we can do about it. There's a very rich story behind each one of these indicators, and our team has done a great job to tell that story, so I definitely encourage you to read the full report. Unfortunately, we don't have the time to go into all of them. What I would like to do is share just 3 with you today. The first one is our global circularity metric, the 6.9%. This is the technical cycling rate, and behind this we've calculated 6 additional sub-indicators, again, really to show where precisely is our economy failing and what can we do to turn that around. The story isn't all negative, so in fact we have one sub-indicator here that's trending positively. That is waste as a share of total outputs. So of the total materials coming out of the economy, more and more of that is solid waste, and that's a good story in terms of the fact that we have control over what we can do with that and direct its end of life. However, the story really is here a negative one, with 4 sub-indicators trending negatively. Total material extraction is increasing sharply, waste generation is continuing to rise, and the global recycling rate is continuing to fall. Today, the global recycling rate is just 27%. It's a very low number, but also shows you the potential of what could come if we implement the circular economy broadly. Just as an experiment, if we were to be able to recycle everything that's recyclable, our headline indicator of 6.9% could be as high as 25%, just to show you the margin for improvement and how much of a circular economy could be a reality if we bring a lot of these strategies and business models to light. I think one of the frustrating things that we see is that really, when it comes to material extraction, consumption, and recycling, there's no sign of a global target. And this really means that we're well off track and really explains why this number keeps going down. There's really not enough attention around how we manage materials in this sense. The second number that I want to share with you is carbon neutral biomass. This is the biocycle, it's regenerative materials. It's over 20% of the materials that we consume every single year. And this is a critical part of the circular economy story. Obviously, these are materials that are regenerated by Earth cycles every single year. And here we also have a bit of a mixed story. So we're not always doing bad with this. In fact, 2 sub-indicators of the 7 that we've calculated are trending positively. So biomass per capita is actually relatively stable. The volume of protected land globally is actually trending upwards, which is a great sign. However, when we see the total amount of biomass being consumed by our global economy, that has tripled in a few short decades. Crucially, about 10% of all biomass being consumed is non-carbon neutral. That means we're putting more carbon into the atmosphere rather than sequestering it into the ground. There are actually a number of global targets around biomass and forest preservation. Sadly, these are off track, so there's work still to do here. But I think, for me, this is actually quite a positive story, and the bioeconomy isn't spoken enough about, but I think there's a real tangible opportunity to really get this right and to make this better within even a decade. For me, it really does come down to that 10% of non-carbon neutral biomass. If you look at the total inputs into the economy, that's just 2% of all the materials that we consume. So just focusing on getting that 2% right and bringing it back down within a carbon neutral level would be a huge win for circular economy, and also a huge win for nature and restoring our biological cycles. The final number I'll share with you is the fraction of fossil fuels used for energy. Now, this is only 13%, and that's actually relatively small when you think of all of the energy extracted from fossil fuels to power our global economy. It only represents 13% of the input to the economy. What it is responsible for is 20% of the output in the form of emissions. What we do see here are a number of indicators trending positively. So the share of renewable energy use is trending up. The share of fossil fuels consumed as a fraction of the total is trending down, which is a good sign. And the share of emissions as total output is also trending down. These are all good signals that the energy transition is underway. However, when we look at the absolute volume, the mass of fossil fuels being consumed, and the absolute volume of emissions leaving into the atmosphere, this is rising sharply. And this should come as no shock to you that a lot of the targets around the renewable energy transition and for climate change are well off track. So unfortunately, this is another pain point of the global economy that we really need to get right, but I think there are a number of positive opportunities here, and we spell them out in the report. I think clearly continuing the aggressive transition to the renewable forms of energy, but also much more resource-efficient energy systems and much more energy-dense fuels. For us, this is a very actionable report. So I think, like no other report that we've released in the past years, we've really unleashed a huge amount of data. And it's quite a technical report, so those that have a technical mind, you're going to love this report. But I think data is not enough. And this is actually why we're very excited to be launching what we're calling the CGR dashboard. What you can see here is an online database where we hold a lot of the data, a lot of the insights. In fact, it is the largest database on circular economy in the world, with data on over 100 countries. This is truly the single place to monitor and compare and really identify those pain points at a national level and to try to understand what we can do about it and what strategies to deploy. As you can see here, everything is interactive. You can click, you can explore, you can dive deep into different sections, and you can crucially visualize a lot of the data that has previously been stored up in our reports. We also help you take action. We give you expert guidance and recommendations, a lot with the recommendations and insights that you would find in our traditional reports are very expertly woven into this dashboard. And we also include a number of policy and business cases that really show you some of the cutting-edge thinking and solutions that are happening today, that also give you a nudge as to how you can begin to address these areas of underperformance and begin to turn these numbers around. This is just a sample, so I would definitely invite you to attend our accelerator session. It's happening this Thursday at the B3 Arena at 3 o'clock. We'll go into much more depth into what's behind the dashboard and crucially engage with the audience to see how can we really make this the best database in the world. We're very excited to unleash data and drive the transition from a lot of the analysis and a lot of the insights that we've been accumulating over the last years. But crucially, there's much more to do. And I think if I can invite our great panelists on the stage, I would really like to hear from a few leaders in the field on the findings of the report this year, but crucially also what action is needed and what can we do. So with no further ado, thank you for walking up. We have Cecilia Dell'Acqua. She's leading businesses through circularity and a partner of Deloitte in Spain, and we've been crucially collaborating on these reports for over 3 years, so it's really a pleasure to have you here. Mr. Adalberto Maluf is the National Secretary for Urban Environment and Environmental Quality at the Brazilian Ministry of Environment and Climate Change. He's been spearheading initiatives spanning a number of different sustainability topics, climate justice, and also resilience. So it's a pleasure to have you on stage, and certainly last but not least, Mr. Christian Spano, Director of Circularity at Valley Base Metals. I would say actually quite a visionary on how we really need to think about transforming our extractive-based industries into much more of a circular model. So I'm very excited to have you on the stage, and I'll come and join you now. We don't have that much time. It's a relatively short session. But I think one of the things that we really took care to do this year was really try to spell out, I guess, where we're underperforming, where the key pain points of the global economy are. Maybe I would start with you, Cecilia. I guess over the 3 years that we have been collaborating, and you've been sort of seeing this downward trend, and I think behind closed doors also sharing a lot of the frustration about what's happening and how can we turn that around. I guess I would just want to know, what does this mean for you, and also maybe you can speak a little bit about what does this mean for the business community? What would be some of the key messages that businesses need to hear looking at these numbers?
Thank you, Matt. It's a pleasure to be here today. And I'm going to base my answer in what you were sharing as well. The trend is negative, right? And this makes us an urgent call to action, really. Companies and the planet is not going to get their way only with recycling. And we have been seeing this from 6 to 28%. There is a lot of things to be done yet. So what is needed from the business community is really a systemic change. And to implement the systemic change, there is a need for change of the mindset. A change of the mindset both from the design point of view, so how are we going to produce, how are we going to do the product in a different way, how we are going to manufacture this, what are the materials, what is the relationship that we are going to have with our suppliers, how are we going to sell this, and how are we going to engage with our consumers, right? We know from Deloitte's queries that we have in customer insights that customers are willing to engage with companies that have circularity initiatives. However, this decision making is going to make if only if the product is better, right? If circular products are better, they don't want to compromise any attribute from the product, right? So when companies need to implement this change of mindset, they need to include circularity in both their strategies, their process, and the culture as well, right? So this is a completely change on how business perceive it. And in order to do this, they need to really move forward on the innovation. So they need to be innovative in the different way of thinking about what are they doing with the product. But they also need to demystify myths, right? In the previous conversation that was having in this room, the colleague of Christian from Vale was saying about the balance between quality and recycled materials and products. And there is a myth. With innovation, really what we are achieving now, recycled products that are better than virgin materials, right? So we really need to engage on this. And the third point, I think, is measure, right? We need to measure in order to improve and to create a solid business case. So in order for companies to move forward on circular initiatives, they need to create a business imperative behind it. So yes, there are environmental impacts on circularity, so less carbon emissions. However, there are also a lot of business value behind, either because the supply chain is more resilient, even because there is less risk across the whole value chain, or even new value streams or revenue streams from the different products, right? So we believe that the business really needs to start this action, measuring, innovating, and demystifying this myth, and finally creating a very good business case to engage with this.
Yeah. No, great answer. But maybe I can pass that along to Christian, because I think you've been doing quite a lot of work. One of the things that I didn't touch on in my presentation was really, I think, how we really need to reconceptualize stocks. So stocks being a powerful mine of materials that are already existing. I know that you're doing a lot of visionary work in terms of really conceptualizing that from the seat of a mining company. So that must be also a challenge. I guess maybe if I could tie that into a little bit of a reaction from what Cecilia was saying, and maybe push you a little bit to think about, why is it so important to really kind of reconceptualize your business in this circular model, and maybe also how do you kind of take that first step?
Look, Matt, I think the first thing I want to say is that we got the gender balance here wrong, just echoing what my colleague Bruno Pelli was saying. So next time we need to think about that a little bit better. And answering your question, look, I can give you some sort of speech on beautiful corporate language. I'll try to avoid that. I'm Peruvian, and I was 12 when the boom of mining came into my country. So I can tell you a beautiful story of how a mining boom happens and all the jobs and all the technology and all the investment that comes with it. I can tell you a terrible story about mining, about the impact on communities, the impact on environment, the impact on GDP, the impact on a number of other industries. And that's for me something makes it very personal, because I know that hopefully I'm going to be here 100 years, 90 years. I may have 40 to contribute. And actually in good shape, maybe 25. It's little. All of us here have roughly, or have already used, like me, a good bunch of that time. What are we going to do with that? So this is not me like a gig that I do because I think it's cool. I really feel it's personal, because this global economy will need a huge amount of minerals and metals to get to the point where all energy is renewable, all materials can be recovered, and all land is regenerative, which is the end point we want to get to, So there is, and the report says it really well, we're going to get a huge increase in minerals and metals, that are going to go to stocks. I love the fact how the report today says that there are different types of stocks. I think the biggest business opportunity is in the stock space, and it's a complete blind spot, and it's sweet for me because that's where my business is really doing well. And then it's recycling. No? I would actually challenge the 6.9 being necessarily bad news, because if you look at how you build that number, it's all linked with waste. And so in a global circular economy, there is no waste. So maybe that number will still go down, but you will have a lot of circular models in your stock.
Yep.
And so this year's report really is a game changer. That focus on stocks, openly saying recycling can go to 25%, but only 25%. It's a huge increase, but only 25%. And let's think about how these primary products go into the real type of stocks, the ones that we can recover. Now, answering your question, Vale Base Metals has seen circularity as a business. And so if we think about how a circular business model will apply for a mining company focused on base metals, it's a fantastic question to answer, you know? From the beginning, from the processes, as Bruno was saying, from Vale Iron Ore, how do we go about taking these materials from nature in a way that is regenerative? Huge question. We're starting to do it, turning slags into fertilizers and capturing carbon. That's regenerative. How do we take that copper and never let it go into those stocks that grow over time? How do we make a business of that? That business outperforms the current business. But try to sell that to a linear business in the automakers or the buildings and so on. But for me, it's a business opportunity. It's exciting, and there's only winning options here.
Yeah. Oh, great. And we've had a lot of private conversations, and you're doing really terrific work, so I wish you all the best with the very difficult job it must be to transition a company like Vale Base Metals. But maybe I would just like to take it over to you, Mr. Malouf, more from the governmental side. I think what I've seen, and a lot of our team who works with governments, is that governments are very easily put out ambitions, but I think when it comes to measuring and monitoring circularity, it's a very difficult world. From our experience, even just getting the correct data together to give governments insights on their level of circularity and what they can do about it, it's challenging. But I'd be very curious to hear, with this year's focus on the need for monitoring, I mean, how do you see that? I guess what are the critical things to monitor, and what should we be prioritizing across the world and from a governmental perspective?
Well, thank you, Matthew. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation. You're right. We can only manage what we can measure, right? So in our case here in Brazil, since the beginning, we realized there was a big lack of information throughout the whole system. So we had 12 ministerial and presidential decrees in the first year, only to regulate everything on transparency, compliance, and traceability on the EPR systems. So we did one on the model of the reports, one on how the mass should be calculated, one on the PRO entities, who should be the entities we call entidades gestoras, the management entities that can report for those sector. We also homologated the independent verifier of results, a system that can track all the invoices from the waste cooperatives throughout the recycling facilities. And now we launched the second phase from the recycling facilities. We started with plastic, now steel, paper, chemicals, all the way to the factories that use that product. Because as you all probably heard, our EPR systems, especially the plastic one that we just raised at the bar to be published by President Lula very soon, is going to require a 25% recycled content to produce new plastic packaging. As we have in glass, and we are doing for all the other materials, it's going to go up to 50% in 2040. Like our recycling, which is 30% mandatory for the companies when they sell to recover, it's also going up to 50%. So we believe that with this traceability system, we're able to manage understand a little bit better the role that the private sector will play. So last week we published our national circular economy policy with 5 areas and a much stronger focus on the upstream measures, because historically, well, I know we cannot save our way out of here only with recycling, but historically we have been working more on recycling. But now, finally, we start to foster and propose new reusable systems. You know, all the actions that are needed, and the decrees are going to come also with measures that the private sector should implement on reusable systems, on recyclability, on refurnishing, also electronics. We also want to foster some more things. We are bringing in textiles for the first time. We never had a legislation too. We are also thinking about something new for the construction sector. As you all know, civil construction, buildings as a whole represents more than 1/3 of emissions, and they stay there for decades. So we need to make sure that they have used the right materials, that they have thought about all the sustainable construction measures that could be incorporated. So I feel now, especially in the case of Brazil, because we have really raised the bar of the accountability, and we brought the Minister of Treasure, like the most important guy, to be the chair of the Ecological Transformation Plan, where circular economy is one of the group. And the National Circular Economy Forum, we also suggest and have the Minister of Industry as chair, which is the vice president. So it kind of raised the bar. It's not only an environmental thing anymore. It's not the Minister of Environment and we pushing the agenda on the private sector, but it's rather the finance sector, the private sector. We also had a big effort on what we call the tripartite chamber, where we have the federal, states, and cities to coordinate legislations. We have a new bill on the National Environment Chamber on the role of each for the monitoring and the fiscalization and what they should do. We also have some new measures in how we're going to integrate with the federal, we call it like the Federal Prosecutor's Office, and they're going to integrate the national systems that all the EPR systems in Brazil, hopefully next year, 2026. But if we can't deliver by next year, 2027, I can guarantee, because I'm not going to leave office by the end of 2026 if we don't deliver that. But we are going to have one single system to report all the 14 EPR systems, and 2 extra we are creating now. Everybody, every single company, instead of having to reply for different states, different reports, send a PDF. Now they send an email with a PDF, an Excel sheet, with the areas where it's just impossible. So we are creating this national system that everybody will reply there, the states, the cities, the justice system. So we believe that giving more transparency on the numbers, we started also to publish the reports on a full, which is good for the companies that are leading the way, but it hasn't been that good for the companies that were doing, a little bit, but not that much, because now people are seeing who is really doing what, who is really investing the way speakers. And besides the National Forum on Circular Economy, we also created 2 chambers, the National Commission on Recycling and the National Commission on Social Inclusion of the Waste Speakers. So these 3 chambers together somehow became this interesting multi-level governance structure that we created. We are calling also a climate federalism action, which the Minister of Cities, Science and Technology, and us as Minister of Environment, we do together. It's called the Green Resilient Cities Program. And we have 1/3 of the members civil society and private sector, 1/3 government, federal government, 1/3 states, municipal and federal and states and other agencies. So all together there, we have this place where the policies are debated before. Like Minister Marina Silva, our Minister for Environment, she has always been pushing us to be very transparent, do public policies based on science, but she says that the most important is not the measure itself, but the process to create the measures. Okay. So I think restaurability will be very important for us. It's already being delivered, and as we follow up, the INC process for plastic, hopefully in Geneva in August we'll finish. We also would love to see the SPP, the scientific panel on waste and chemicals. You know how, like, we have IPCC on climate, and we all see those nice reports from IPCC. We're going to create one, hopefully, in June in Uruguay, the SPP of chemicals and waste. And this will be an agency integrated with the UN system that is going to integrate better the data. So I think having this data in more transparent and more accountability, also to the private sector, but also to the government. Remember, the government has to play its own role too. It will be easier for society to understand and for the citizens. Because at the end, everything starts in our house. If we don't separate, if we don't keep the value of the products for longer, if we don't reuse our own stuff, and we change this crazy way that people are trying to teach us, that, you know, you buy, you use, and just throw and buy and use and throw. We got to change that. The planet cannot take anymore. So we know that the circular economy as a whole became a model for companies, for government, and also for civil society. But now we need to get into the hearts of people so that they understand that their daily decisions are part of this process.
I think that's a great final message to close on. I do see that we're out of time. But I would like to thank each of you for being here. It really is a pleasure. You guys really are the leaders in the field, so I'm super proud to have this moment with you and really hear about, well, not only your reaction to the current state of the world, but what we can do about it. It was really nice to hear that. I think for the audience, please feel free to download the report, scan the QR code. As I said, it's full of juicy data, and I really hope that you can take that forward for the rest of the forum. But thank you very much.